following podcast is recorded and produced by the Podcast Precinct in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com. The Podcast Precinct. Consistency, creativity, culture.
Andrew, you told me that you were just scrolling through Instagram and you were just getting really bored.
You know what I was? It's just that simple scrolling. Didn't really have anything to do, so just scroll all the way through. And then, I don't know, something just hit me that I just want to know more interesting facts about history, in world history and history in America, but I just don't know where to find fun, interesting facts about it.
Andrew, you are in such luck because I just discovered this new Instagram page and it is called The Amazing History with Harold. So make sure you go check that out on Instagram. This guy, Harold Peebles, is like a historian apparently, and he will post just these great, he'll take one thing, like the first one that he did was about George Washington, and he'll just tell you all these amazing, obviously completely true, not made up whatsoever for comedic purposes, facts about these different things in history, American history, or just a world history, pop culture history. Man, it's a fun follow, Andrew. So I encourage you to go to The Amazing History with Harold. Check it out wherever you get your Instagrams.
That is so awesome. Now I can learn fun, interesting facts while scrolling through Instagram. I can't thank you enough, Johnny.
You're welcome. And make sure you tell your friends about this, and you'll be the smartest kid at the ball when you bring up these amazing facts about our history. We're driving down the road and we're floating with disaster. That's right. Welcome to the Retro Active Sports Podcast, the only one you need for your retro sports fix. That's right. Well, unless you really like it, then you probably want a bunch of different ones. But I promise you, I swear to Dale Earnhardt above, that we're the best retro sports podcast that has two guys, one named Johnny, that's me, and the other named Andrew, that's him.
That is true. That is, I got to agree with it, and not just because I'm a co-host on this podcast. It just makes sense.
Yeah, I defy you, anyone out there, to find another podcast that meets those said requirements. And if you do, just don't tell us. We would rather not know at all. Ignorance is truly bliss, which is how I live my life. Be completely ignorant, but happy.
That's how you got to do it. That's how you got to do it sometimes.
And I'm very excited for today's topic. When you brought this idea of the show to me, Andrew, this was one of the topics that immediately came to my head because it doesn't get talked about often.
No, it doesn't. And it was such a huge explosion of popularity.
Yeah, in the 90s, this is just such a fast-growing sport, and especially for us Southern gentle people like myself, this thing was obviously very, very huge for us. My dad was into it, so of course they got me into it. We're obviously talking about 1990s era NASCAR.
Yes. I knew it was huge when even up north in New York, people were opening up just NASCAR like theme stores. That's all.
Yes.
And that's when I was like, wow, this is big. My uncle, I would say, got my mother and I into it, but he's always either drag race or anything like that. He's always been a car guy.
Yeah.
So for him, it was nothing. But then when you start seeing everything, and then all of a sudden you start choosing a favorite driver and choosing a driver that you hate, Jeff Gordon.
I think everybody hated either Jeff Gordon was either your favorite or he was the biggest villain. There's no in between for Gordon.
Yeah, I couldn't stand Jeff Gordon, but I just thought it was like a cool thing. I mean, it was one of those, after a while, it became a good nap thing, and you watched it. For me, it was like my evolution into hockey. I didn't really grow up with hockey, but it started as a kid like, oh man, these guys can beat the crap out of each other. Like NASCAR, there's a chance that somebody's going to get into a wreck, destroyed. And then it turned into the actual like, wow, there's some definite skill that has to go into driving this machine, controlling this machine,
Yeah.
knowing when to pit, when not to pit. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
you have
When not to turn right. Yeah.
yeah, but it,
Which is
it
most of the time.
it became it became a novelty thing to watch on TV. I'm trying to think what I watch now as a novelty. If most likely it's cricket, but even I've evolved into enjoying cricket a lot. Cricket's a great sport.
Oh, it's a very interesting one, but I just don't. But you're onto something here because my dad is a car guy, but I am not. Like I couldn't tell you anything in a motor, like what's what in a motor besides the battery.
I
And I couldn't fix one for anything. I could jump a car off. That's about as far as my mechanical skills go, and obviously put gas in. But other than that, you're asking for a lot when you're talking to me about a car. But NASCAR just clicked for me as a kid because you had all these colorful cars and paint jobs on these cars, and then the drivers all seemed to have a personality. It was just my dad was. Well, still, I would say still is, but obviously that guy's retired now. But big Mark Martin guy, right? And so my favorite driver, of course, was Mark Martin. That like I can tell you that I watched Mark Martin from the Folgers car to the Valvoline car to the Viagra car. It was really hard to keep up with him then, and even the Winn-Dixie car, which a lot of people don't even realize. He drove the Winn-Dixie car, and that was my first job as a teenager, was at a Winn-Dixie grocery store, and just so many memories. I even collected the diecast cars, the Hot Wheel. No, it wasn't Hot Wheels. It was Racing Champions did them. They were like they'd put out the replica of the cars, but they're the size of the Hot Wheels. And I had a bunch of those, and I would create races and stuff with those things as a kid. Some of my favorite memories with my dad is when he this one time he took me to Darlington, which they don't even do that one anymore, and they had a big racetrack down there, and some of Dad's friends at work got a bunch of tickets, and I was able to go, and Dad took me with them, and it was such a great time. Loud, by the way, really loud. So I've actually went to a couple races growing up, and I don't live too far from well, it's not really little, but a town called Hickory, of all places, is the name of it, and they have a very famous speedway. It's a super small track called the Hickory Motor Speedway, but a lot of NASCAR guys growing up came through there. Our biggest claim to fame in Hickory is the fact that one Dale Jarrett is from Hickory, and I've actually seen him around quite a few times. A lot of my close friends when I was in high school actually went to the high school that his daughter went to, if it makes any sense. And so actually when I would go to those basketball games, he would be there sometimes, and I'd actually see him a few times. Never actually talked to him or anything like that, but yeah. So NASCAR is kind of in my soul. Now, if you ask me anything about today's NASCAR, I couldn't tell you.
I can't tell you a driver. I'm in the same boat as you. I can't tell you a driver today. It's got to be at least a good probably 20 years since I've watched a race. I would say 15 since I watched a race. I think last time I even checked anything out, Dale Jr.
Yeah.
Who was
I think he's retired now.
Yeah. And Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah.
When Jimmy Johnson in the Lowe's car was big.
It's been since actually purposely watched a race. I mean, I've caught them like bits and pieces, just flipping through channels, but it's probably been easily 10, 15 years for me too that I actually sat down to purposely watch one. It when all the guys that I watched sort of started aging out of it, that kind of just, that just happens sometimes. I aged out of it when they did, in a way. So when Mark Martin and Dale Jr. and even Jeff Gordon, when all these guys kind of retired and slowly it's not racing anymore, that sort of dropped the interest for me too. Because these are the guys that I always was like, I want to see what these people are doing, right? Like if I can't see Rusty Wallace anymore, what's the point?
I love Russ. That's my guy. Miller Genuine Draft car. Then went into the Miller Light car. Had a Rusty Wallace Miller Genuine Draft pitcher in my room as a kid. And then I had a T-shirt, and I mean, not everybody was in the NASCAR.
Yeah.
I wore my Rusty Wallace T-shirt proudly, and my nickname became Rusty just because I wore that Rusty Wallace T-shirt. But
I had multiple Mark Martin T-shirts growing up.
One of my biggest thrills about 90s NASCAR was when because I love starting lineup. Cannot put this out there enough. Starting lineups are amazing. But when starting lineups started making NASCAR,
I remember this. Yeah.
years. And at first you're like, how are they going to do this? But they did it very nice, like them at the winning circle or anything like that. And so that was really a clicking moment. And then I also collected the NASCAR Upper Deck cards. And that's when I learned
I had some of those too. Yeah.
one of the greatest names in sports history in Dick Trickle.
You will never be able to top Dick Trickle, right? Unless you're unless you're getting on top, I guess. But you can't. That's a very difficult name to be better than. That's the name I always think of when people are like, "Hey, what's a funny sports guy's name?" It's always Dick Trickle. Always is there.
There was a guy that played for the Denver Broncos, and his name was Fair Hooker.
I remember you telling me that.
So I would.
Now that's a
That's
a law firm I'd go to. Fair Hooker and Dick Trickle, Esquire, or whatever they're called.
That would be a fun episode. Fun sports names.
But yeah, it's just I mean, man. Well, I think we should start with let's start with some of the big names. I mean, the biggest name I think would be Dale Earnhardt, right?
Yeah, actually, what do we have here? Bleacher Report did a ranking of the top 10 NASCAR drivers of the 1990s.
Oh, let's do this. All right.
We
Now, of course, we go in the 90s. Remember, we're leaving out like Richard Petty because he's already kind of fading here. And he's still the king, 200 wins, big deal. So a lot of your people before that, or, because NASCAR, I don't think a lot of people know this, has been around since like the 30s and 40s. So it's been around for a long time. I mean, famously, it started from when the country was like, no more alcohol. And people in the South were like, what's say about that, buddy? And they would kind of make their cars a little quicker just so the police, because they knew they'd be running from the cops. And that's literally how NASCAR got started. So, because you know what happens, Andrew, when you get a bunch of guys together and they got a bunch of cars, like, hey, my car's pretty fast.
Yeah.
It's not faster than mine. All right, let's say. And that's how it goes right there. That's the whole gist of it.
Is that how the Hudson Hornet got started?
It's 1,000,000%.
And you mentioned Richard Petty, and I got to say his son, Kyle Petty's No Fear Racing. Favorite race.
Greatest racing game of all time. Next to right underneath it, Bill Elliott's Racing, of course, for the NES. But the one other thing too, growing up, I have this very distinct memory of a lot of Saturdays in the summer when I was a kid. My parents would take me and my sister. We would kind of go around and drive around on Saturday mornings. So we're missing cartoons. That's the bad part. But the good part would be yard sales. Right.
Yes.
And we'd have a lot of yard sales in the area. A lot of people would be out trying to sell their old stuff. And I have this very distinct memory of stopping this one house, and this person had like some old comic books. And they had this one of the story of Richard Petty in comic book form. And I got it. I think my parents paid like 10 cents or something like that, some ridiculously small amount for it. And I read that thing so much, it literally fell apart in my hands one time. Because it had all the stuff from his he had a very iconic career and very iconic cars too, really. And from the STP that everybody knows to that long blue one, I forgot what they're called, the Plymouth something, and with the big wing on the back of it.
Oh,
and he had some very iconic crashes too. Man, what a wild career! But yeah, that's a very distinct memory I have.
I was just looking at the honorable mention of one of the guys, but we kind of already mentioned Bill Elliott. But I wasn't a big Elliott fan. And I was wondering, did you ever not like a driver, not just based on their personality, but maybe based on what company they were sponsored by or the color scheme of their car?
I will go one past that.
Okay.
And it's the make of the car. Because
yes,
that was a big deal down here. Today I could care less. I've had over my life, I've had cars from many different brands. But my dad was he still is, but he's not near as hardcore on it now, but Ford guy, right?
Oh.
So, of course, I was a Ford guy. And since Jeff Gordon was coming up, right? And he's this young guy, he's winning all these races, and he's driving a Chevrolet. Those are the worst things you could possibly do.
See, my uncle was the opposite.
He's a Chevy guy?
Oh, Chevy. He can't stand a Ford. But he was a Dale Earnhardt senior guy.
Yeah, see, my dad didn't like Dale Earnhardt, but he respected him because he felt like he was he felt like he was
He had a cool nickname too.
Yeah, the Intimidator. That's a freaking great name. But I think it's part of it, like his personality. Whenever Dell talked, it didn't seem like he was fake. Like I think that's
No.
who he was, 100%. And my dad respected that. So, but yeah, it's one of the reasons that I really love NASCAR, and it still holds a special place for me, is my dad and I have a very awesome dad, very lucky in that aspect with who my parents are. But my dad and I are just very different people, personality wise, and a lot of stuff we didn't connect. He would, I was going to put myself down, come down to my level. That's not what I mean. Like he would play basketball with me, and then my dad could care less about basketball, but he knows I love it. And so my dad's very awesome. But the one thing we both really did like was NASCAR. And we bonded up NASCAR and Quantum Leap. Those are two things we really like.
Two great things.
They are two
really great things.
Yeah.
Those are two really
If we could combine the two, Andrew.
Yes. Quantum leaping NASCAR. As he leaps from driver to driver. Who's gonna win? We don't.
Whichever one Sam is today, that's the one who's going to win on this bright, beautiful Sunday. I mean, I would count down to when the Daytona 500 that's a big deal. It's like usually around February to March running there, if I'm thinking right. Mm-hmm. And that was always a big deal. And I knew that I was growing out of it when EA stopped making the NASCAR games.
Yeah.
I mean, those were a big deal for me. I always got those. And then when they started like just saying, hey, we're not going to do these iconic races anymore. They stopped doing Darlington. That's the big one I remember. A couple of them in North Carolina they stopped doing. So I was like, yeah, I'm kind of growing out of this. It was really sad.
And I think it's the last sport to actually fly underneath the radar and be sponsored by a cigarette company.
Yes. I was going to ask you too. Like my grandparents on both sides, like my grandmas on both sides, both like NASCAR. And I'm going to give you two names. Like Bill Elliott's the easy one. That's one my one grandma really likes. She's a big Bill Elliott person. I'm going to give you a name that I guarantee you doesn't get talked about. And that is he drove the green skull car, Mr. Harry Gant.
I never even heard of him.
That was my grandma Probst's favorite driver. She had so much Harry Gant stuff. One of the things I got when she passed away, because me and her were really close, was the Harry Gant car she had, one of the Harry Gant cars she had. But that was also one of the other favorite things. It's just the new kids were doing these. They wouldn't put some of these sponsors on the cars. So we just have like the paint jobs and stuff. Like you would never see like Rusty Wallace's would just say Wallace on it or something like that. But it was in the Miller font or whatever the beer was. And Harry Gant's did the same thing. They wouldn't put Skull on there because it's a tobacco product.
I don't even remember this guy.
And I also have a very distinct memory of one of the convenience stores close to our house had like one room that was just them trying to sell NASCAR stuff. And I was very excited that day when I found the Dick Trickle Snickers car. And my dad very nicely got it for me. So
I had NASCAR memorabilia. I had Rusty.
So I had a Dick Trickle.
Hope you got that checked out.
Nope. Just let it go.
I had the Rusty Wallace picture. The shirt. I bought a Mark Martin model kit.
Oh, I remember those. Yeah.
He was my second favorite. And a Tiger electronic handheld NASCAR game.
Oh man, I never had that. That would have been really cool.
Yeah, I had that. So I got
the only Tiger games I had was a Ninja Turtle one, and what was the other one I had? Was it Sonic? I can't remember. It's one of those. But yeah, man. All right, let's get to this list.
Okay, so according to Bleacher Report, these are the top 10. Bill Elliott was an honorable mention. We talked about him.
Well, I mean, that's wild that he's a top 10. I would think if this was the late 80s included, he would be in the top 10 because that's when he was kind of big. I mean, he had his own video game.
Yeah, that's what they pretty much said, is that if he was bigger in the previous decade.
And I think his son is pretty big in it now. Chase Elliott. I think it's his son. He's related to Bill Elliott somehow. That's one of the names I know, and it's purely because his last name's Elliott.
Are you I think we're at the age where a guy comes out and he has the same name as a person we remember. Do you get like, I wonder if that's so-and-so's son?
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
even 100%. Even in
any sport.
Basketball. You're
Yeah.
like, I wonder if that's so and so's
Yep.
daughter or something like
Yeah.
that.
But basketball is really easy because there's a lot of juniors.
Yes, yes. I
Gary
just
Payton. I bet you won't know who Gary Payton Jr.'s dad is.
ooh. The next honorable mention is Ricky Rudd.
I remember Ricky Rudd. I think he was the Tide car, if I'm
Yeah.
thinking correctly. Yeah, so this is wild how I remember all this. Also, this is probably why to this day one of my favorite Tom Cruise movies is still Days of Thunder.
Rubbing his racing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, number 10 Tide car.
Because it's not just a dick trickle. Sometimes it's a cold trickle.
That is the other honorable mention. Number 10 was my mother's favorite driver, Terry Labonte of the Cornflakes car there.
Yes, yeah. There's a couple of bunnies who raced.
There was Bobby. I remember
Bobby, Terry. I think there was another one that I can't remember.
I love it how we got to go through the Labontes.
The Labonte lineage. I guarantee you we're the only podcast that's done that.
Going through the Labonte lineage here. So yeah, he was a top 10 driver. I didn't know he was called Texas Terry.
I didn't either. I'm assuming that's where he's from.
11 wins and 139 top 10 finishes. This is a great sport too, where it's in that mold of like golf, where if you do win, it's absolutely amazing. But as long as you get top 10, you're still doing
Yeah. Top 10 still pretty, considering it's usually a field of like 40 plus cars.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. And there's usually a lot of accidents and all kinds of things can happen because it's not only a race about who's the fastest, but also some endurance is kind of put in there.
Yeah. I always wondered how they peed and then they showed, and I was like, yeah, I didn't need to know that.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. I mean, yeah, you just kind of let it, you let your dick trickle.
Here's a guy I never even heard of, but he made the list. Died in 93 from a plane crash. Alan
Kowicki.
Alan Kowicki. There it is.
Hooters car. I remember this.
He was the Hooters car?
Yeah. He was was really good. And he died young because he was in that plane crash. I have a very distinct memory of that too.
Yeah, I think that's the only name when I was just kind of previewing the list that I didn't.
It's pretty wild. You know, when you're a fan of a sport, you definitely remember these deaths of people who are in the sport. I remember him and Davey Allison because I like Davey Allison, and when he died, I was really sad.
Wasn't there two Waltrips too, Michael and Bill?
There's a Michael Waltrip for sure. Bill Waltrip, that sounds right. And I feel like there's another Waltrip.
There's just so many.
Waltrip lineage. Let's go.
I could have swore there's a Bill Waltrip NASCAR. There's Michael. There's another Waltrip. Where does it say where the brothers are? Oh, Daryl
Waltrip. That's the one I think he's the one who always said, boogity boogie, let's go racing, boys. Like it's what he would always say when he got put on commentary.
Oh yeah, he worked for Fox NASCAR.
Yeah. This is the memories I have instead of things that's important. Like I remember Alan Kowicki drove the Hooters car. That's where my memory is. Well, in my defense, it was 93, so I'd be 10-year-old, and I was just discovering what Hooters were.
Yeah. Wow. He scored 4 wins. He just made 92 starts in the decade. Prior to his death, this is Alan Kowicki. He scored 4 race wins and finished in the top 10 in 44 events. Wow, he had a future.
Yeah, that's why it was such a big shock when that happened. I mean, that's a whole thing we could do. That's another episode. Maybe that's probably even just not even for this show, where plane crashes that took away some promising careers. I mean, heck, sports and music right there. You can make a whole episode out of that. Sad.
Very sad. Very promising career. Coming in at number 7 is I think this is a guy like Ricky Rudd where I never heard. My NASCAR circle was small.
Yeah.
Other than my mom, my uncle, and my aunt, and then the people at the NASCAR shop. But I've never heard anybody say anything really bad about Ricky Rudd and this guy and Ernie Irvan.
Ernie Irvan was another one. He was my uncle's favorite driver. Okay. Ernie Irvan. Yeah.
So
he liked Ernie Irvan. I think he kind of took over the
he was like
took over Davey Allison's car after Davey died, I believe.
Texaco.
Like it was a Texaco car or something like that. It was like a black car Texaco, I believe. One of my favorite things too they would do sometimes is it like these cars that you knew that were iconic on their paint jobs. They'd bring out like once in a while to do like a very special paint job.
Yes.
On these cars, and I always freaking loved that. I got very excited when WCW got their own NASCAR.
Was it Goldberg on there, even though he's reckless in the ring?
Yeah. Yeah. He certainly was.
Oh yeah, Ernie Irvin like lost his eyesight or something. I remember him getting into a nasty crash. It was either him or Ricky Rudd,
Ricky Rudd, I think they both had really bad crashes.
where like it looked like half of the car got ripped in half. And I was like,
Yeah.
there's no way this guy is alive. And
Yeah.
and I was a young kid, like teenage years, and I was like, there's no way. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, he's got a broken ankle, but so he'll be out for a while.
Yeah, I have a NASCAR is also one of those sports where you love the wrecks, but you also hate them at the same time
Yeah.
because there's real obvious danger there. I mean, Dale Earnhardt died in one, so it's not like there's no danger there. And I have a very I want to stop saying distinct memory, but I have another memory of Mark Martin being in a crash where his car kind of lost control and it drove into the grass and it was going really fast into a wall. And like he's like that, it was really bad, but luckily he came out of it okay. But it was very touch and go there because it was just such a horrific looking thing. I mean, he was going, I don't even know how fast, but that wall stopped him, just dead stopped him. So everybody was really concerned. I have memory of that very much so. And of course, all these memories of cars flipping and stuff. That was always the wild ones. The big one is what they always called these wrecks.
Yeah. You got to bring out the pace car.
And again,
caution.
Caution, throw caution to the wind. The another memory I have too is our big amusement park in North Carolina is called Carowinds, and it's in Charlotte. It's pretty big, and I think now it's Paramount Carowinds. But one of the rides they used to have, it's become many things since then, was the Days of Thunder ride. And you could get in it, and it was one of those. It was like a big theater surrounded you, and the seats and stuff would move and make you feel like you're there. That type of ride, and it would have the big one.
Oh, it would just.
And you're driving through the big one, like you're dodging cars as they're flipping around you. It was so freaking cool, Andrew. Like I rode that. My parents got so annoyed with me because I just wanted to ride that one again and again. Because I didn't like roller coasters. This never were for me. But man, you put me on that Days of Thunder ride, and I was a happy boy.
Got to race through the big one.
Yeah.
Number 6 is Davey Allison. We just kind of talked about.
Yeah, yeah, that's another sad one.
How did
he was really good too.
Yeah, 93. A helicopter.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Sucks.
Yeah.
He had another promising career.
103 starts in the 90s, scored 13 wins and posted 51 top 10 finishes.
Yeah. A definite legend in the making for sure.
Sad. Next one is Dale Jarrett. Johnny.
Yeah.
Seen him, but never talked to him.
I've seen him. I think I waved at him once. I don't remember. I was a teenager.
Is this mustache Dale Jarrett or not?
Yes, it most certainly was. I remember.
Oh, is mustache Dale Jarrett?
Oh yeah. And when he's a little older, he was already retired by then. But yeah,
quality. He was he UPS in the 90s, or was he this quality care car?
He also, I remember him he had a bunch of different ones. Because I also remember like an Interstate Batteries one too, if I'm thinking right.
Quality care, Mr. Dale Jarrett.
See, that's my other favorite thing about these EA NASCAR games. Like you can find a driver, and then they would have multiple different paint jobs for their cars. A lot of the times, and I was so it's just the little things, Andrew, make me so happy. Do you remember this game called NASCAR Rumble?
No.
Oh God, Andrew. Okay, all right. I know what I'm going to have you play. I want you to look into NASCAR Rumble. I have it. That's how much I love it. It's a PlayStation 1 game, and basically it took NASCAR and all your drivers, but really, really made it arcadey. And put NASCAR and like Cruising USA sort of together in a way.
Oh, okay.
And that's sort of what you get here. But it plays better than Cruising USA. It was really good. I promise you, and it still holds up because I still play it from time to time.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because I look through my Facebook memories and it's coming up like Retro Pop, where you and or Retro Bliss, both Retro Pop and Retro Bliss, very good. But Retro Bliss, when you and Trevor did like Outrun, like a racing game every other week, it was like, okay, and then after the last episode, you guys were like, yeah, we're gonna find something else. We're doing no more Outruns, no more Cruising USA,
yeah,
no more Rad Racer, no more nothing, no more racing for a while. Number 4 is my man Rusty Wallace. I have no idea what attracted me to Rusty Wallace and said this is my guy. I don't know if it was the paint job of the car because that black Miller Genuine draft car was pretty sweet there.
Yes, yeah, it was. He had a couple iconic looks on that car.
Yeah, that was
Didn't he also become a commentator afterwards? I think.
I think so.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And then he had the Miller Light car, which was pretty cool. I'm trying to see. Yeah, I just remember him. It was all Miller. Probably why I drink Miller Light to this day. Good job. Good job, NASCAR.
And I wondered why they don't put the some of the sponsors on those toy cars.
I did it. I'm an adult now. I can enjoy a refreshing.
Oh yeah, now no big deal. Yeah,
Yeah. But good job, NASCAR. I'm not smoking Winston cigarettes.
There you go. Yeah, that's the other thing too. I've noticed is it's not Racing Champions who does it anymore, but they still make the NASCAR replica cars, but they're way more expensive now. I remember back in my day, they were like $2 to $3, and now they're way more than that.
What are they now? Because in 2003, I see they switched to Nextel Cup. Now there's a Sprint Cup, but Sprint's no more.
What is it called now?
I'm looking Monster Energy NASCAR Cup as a 2017.
Man,
Why did that? Now it's just called the NASCAR Cup Series in 2020, and that's what it's just called, NASCAR Cup Series.
What an evolution!
That is, yep. Kevin Harvick still races.
Wow.
Oh, is he an owner?
He might be an owner now.
I was gonna say, there's no way this guy still keeps on going.
I mean, there's all kinds of people who have kind of come in and they're still involved with it somehow.
I'm gonna do that when we're done. I'm gonna go the past champions, and we're gonna go until we both actually remember a guy.
Okay, I like that. That's good. That's a great way to end this episode.
2022 on.
Yeah, I like that.
Coming in at number 3 is the Townsend family racer in Mark Martin.
That's my guy. Mark Martin, ride and die all the way. That was our guy. We always rooted for him. He was the Charles Barkley of NASCAR in that he was so good, but he came in second place all the time in the championship points. He would always get a top 3 in the championship points, and he never won it. And he got so close a couple of times, and he just never got to win it. So he's one of those, in my opinion, who's, if you ever did a thing of athletes who were really, really good and you would consider legends but never actually won the big one, he's my top one for sure in that, just because he was always right there. And I remember being a heartbroken little kid when he finished second. I think he only lost by it was such a ridiculous small amount of points in the points race, and I was just so heartbroken about it.
Yeah, he won 30 races in the decade, 217 top 10 finishes, and 151 top 5.
Yeah,
and he had
impressive career.
Number 2 is the Intimidator Dale Earnhardt.
How's he not number 1? It's gonna be Gordon number 1 then, right?
Yeah, because I think they're going by more of stats.
That's got to be it. Yeah,
but if you're gonna go stat popularity, you gotta go. I would go with Earnhardt.
I think these are the definite top 3. I wouldn't argue with these 3 being the top 3. I think, in fairness, despite my huge fandom, Mark Martin would be 3rd. But of the other 2, I would agree with you. I would put Gordon 2nd, and I would put Earnhardt 1st for sure, because he's kind of like the face of NASCAR, really.
Yeah, because Earnhardt, I'm trying to.
Well, good Lord, he was so popular. They still, like, even after he passed away, they were making like made for TV movies about him.
Didn't
ESPN make a movie about him? I think.
Yeah, I think Earnhardt, and I hope nobody takes this the wrong way. Earnhardt was like the man's man. Like,
yeah.
Like, this was the guy with the sunglasses.
He just oozed cool.
Yes, he was. He was the swag guy.
Yes.
He was the Allen Iverson of NASCAR in a way. Like, I am not changing for anybody. You can make rules. You can do whatever.
Who he was and how he carried himself became a style.
Yes. Yeah.
And same way that Allen Iverson did. Yes. Yeah.
Like, this is me. You're gonna love it or you're gonna leave it.
Yeah, and
Where
I don't care either way.
I feel Jeff Gordon was more PR. Let me say the right thing all the time.
Yeah,
He,
he was
let me
he
love
was way more.
everybody.
Here's how it is. Here's how you would explain it. Jeff Gordon, Superman, right?
Yeah.
Dale Earnhardt, Batman.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yes.
Yes.
That's both are incredibly really good, very talented, obviously, and meant a lot to the sport. But that's how they're both kind of perceived. As Jeff Gordon's the Boy Scout, so to say, and Dale Earnhardt's the one. Hey, is all about. Hey, I'm going to get this win one way or the other.
Yep.
Yeah. And here's a really funny thing too. As I got older, because I had this deep hatred of Jeff Gordon, and I have this memory because I'm in North Carolina. A lot of the NASCAR guys had their homes here at one time. Some still do. And they would have their team's headquarters in North Carolina as well. So it was nothing to see on the interstate, see like one of the big truck transporters. It was always really cool for a little kid me, but I'd see a lot of their, like if they have a race, you would see the truck driving the car out there, The trucks were just as colorful as the cars were.
Mhm.
They were always really cool to see. But I have a very distinct memory of the moment I discovered that Jeff Gordon was actually a pretty good guy as a person. And like because he actually does a lot, and he doesn't go around saying he does it, but he does a lot of charity stuff and gives back to the community in North Carolina quite a lot. And I was like, oh, man, I almost hated to find that out because like I can't hate this guy now.
How do I hate him? It reminds me of that. Have you ever seen Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
Yes. Yeah.
I love it when her ex-boyfriend is in the water with her new boyfriend and they're talking. He's like, damn it, just want to hate you, but it's so hard.
Yes.
Don't make it easy.
Yeah, it's the same.
That's
you ever had that? I've had it with a couple
all the time with that.
I have it with a couple of athletes. Like I'll find out, like I don't like this guy, and then I had that same thing with Kobe Bryant. Oh, this is well before he passed away. I mean, I had it just because I'm a Charlotte Hornets guy, and he was technically drafted by us, but they put out this thing that he would never want to play for us. So I was like, man, who does this guy think he is? It's how the kind of thing I was. And on top of that, he ended up being obviously very, very good, and I got even more mad about it. But then I found out like all these players would talk about how good he is and how like he would, he'd actually kind of would give back and all this stuff and all the things he did for his community, especially when it came to like kids sports and stuff like that. And I was like, I can't hate this guy. It's one of the worst things we discover that these people are actually, honestly, most of the athletes that you hate, I guarantee you they're actually pretty decent people for the most part.
I can't stand Josh Allen, but yet every time he takes off running, I'm like, oh, don't hurt your knees. Come on, guy. Don't get your knees. And I hate the Bills, and I should be like, oh, I hope your knees get shredded. I'm like, okay, no. Even I'm there, like, no, don't run. Oh, they're gonna hit your knee. Oh, okay.
Well, I wouldn't worry about this coming year because the Jets are going to be the team. Oh, I saw that headline. That's the only reason I'm saying that.
All right. Are you ready?
Let's do this.
NASCAR winners. And I'm going from 2022 on.
All right. And let's be completely honest. If you've just really heard, but if you know anything about these people.
Okay. Joey Logano. I have no idea. I've heard
the name. I couldn't tell you the car he drove or anything like that. I have no idea.
Kyle Larson. I never even heard the name.
What's the first name? Kyle?
Kyle.
Honestly, when you say Larson, I think Far Side. So it's like
all right. 2020. You mentioned Chase Elliott. I had no idea who the hell he was until this point. So
again, I only know him because of who his dad is. And when we do this for the record, we're not putting any of these people down. This is way more us saying that we've aged out of it.
Kyle Busch, I've heard of him.
All right, so the Busch brothers, there's a Kyle and a Kurt, and the reason I know them is when Bill Elliott retired, my grandma became a big fan of Kurt Busch, I think it was. It's the one. No, it's Kyle because he drove the M&M's car. And the other reason is one of my really good pals. We always called him Rock, but he was a big NASCAR guy, and one time he actually brought me and my buddy Derek, who you may know if you listen to Retro Bliss, and to a race at Bristol. It's like a very famous racetrack in Tennessee. And he actually was in really good with the Busch brothers, and I got to meet them because of that.
Oh.
That's why I could tell you about them, is just because of that. But I didn't know if I would have guessed though, they both would have retired well before then.
But I didn't know what kind of car he drove. So
One was Eminem's for sure. I remember that
yeah,
card distinctly.
Kyle was Eminem. Joey Logano in 2018. 2017 is Mark Trucks Jr.
I think it's Truex.
Truex.
And I only know that I know the name, but I couldn't tell you the car or anything like that.
For me, I already know who this person was, and I even mentioned Lowe's car is Jimmy Johnson in 2016.
Yeah, he was big there for a while. He won quite a lot of stuff, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the first one that I remember. 2016.
Which is 8 years ago.
Yeah. Kyle, geez, was that? It was only 8?
8 or 9 around there, right? 16. There's
yeah.
23 now.
Oh, geez. I'm getting old.
Yeah, 8. Yeah. I don't want to brag, but I just counted that on my fingers.
2014's Kyle Busch.
Okay, that's the one I know again because of the Busch brothers.
Kevin Harvick, I knew who he was in 2014. 13, Jimmy Johnson. This is where it's just gonna be a 2012 is Brad
Kozlowski.
Yep, I was gonna say Polish last name. That's how we do it. That's how we do it where I'm from. This is the guy that I was thinking of. 2011, Tony Stewart. Isn't he the guy that like killed somebody on a track and he like walked scot free?
Yes. He it was an accident in fairness, but somebody like he ran over somebody, I think.
Yeah.
I believe I'm thinking right. All right, so I'm gonna top you one better.
Yep.
I found The Athletic, which is a big sports website, for this upcoming season, 2023, the top driver rankings. And I'm going to go through them pretty fast because something tells me we're not going to know any of these. Well, I was going to try to do that, but they want me to pay for it, and I ain't going to do it.
We all know how we handle paying for things.
Yeah, go to our Patreon so I can look at this stupid article. All right, I can kind of look at it. I'll give you some of the top names. All right, Kyle Larson, like you said, who we didn't know.
Yep.
Christopher Bell, no idea, no clue. This name I do know. Denny Hamlin. I think he's been around for a while.
He drove. Why do I want to feel like Dan Marino had a car? And that became my.
He did, didn't he? I think he did.
Yeah, it was number 13, and it was that aqua and teal. And I remember that became like my third favorite driver.
Oh, I found an even better one from NASCAR.com itself. The current top 25 projected teams or drivers. All right. Noah Gragson. Never heard of him.
No.
Justin Haley.
Nope.
No. Eric Almirola. I'm saying that last name wrong, and I apologize. AJ Allmendinger.
Nope.
I feel like I'm making names up. You know when a video game would do like a college sport, and they would just make all these names up. That's what I feel like I'm doing here. Chris Boucher. I think I've seen that name before. Here's Brad Keselowski is still in it.
Yeah.
Austin Dillon, I have heard of.
Never heard of him.
But I couldn't tell you like the cars or anything, even these people. Bubba Wallace, I know for sure because all the controversy and stuff. He's the McDonald's car. That's a name I know. And I also know that because, again, I'm bragging here, and this is why I'm waist deep in women throwing their underwear at me. I have the McDonald's app. And it would all the time say, hey, if Bubba Wallace is another McDonald's driver too, if they get like a top 10, you can get a French fries for free or something like that.
I have
so always sort of kind of pull it for him just so I could get some good French fries.
Don't worry, I got the Whataburger app. So
well, you're already married. See, I'm a single guy.
Oh,
and that's why I like to brag about these things so the ladies just come up pouring in.
And I think everybody in Texas has the Whataburger app also. So
yeah, we don't even have a Whataburger here, and I'm very jealous. But what I do have is a lot of ladies' phone numbers. I really don't. All right, Eric Jones is another one. Couldn't tell you. Alex Bowman. I'm sorry, Mr. Bowman. Don't know you. Austin Cindric. Don't know. Chase Briscoe. Sounds like a wrestler to me.
Yeah. Maybe
there's that Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney. Don't know. Daniel Suarez. Don't know. Tyler Reddick. Don't know. William Byron. Denny Hamlin, that's the one that I recognized. Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, and Joey Logano.
Oh, there was an actor with the last name Chastain, I do believe.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Like Justine Chastain or something.
I can't remember. There is. Yeah. I knew there definitely is. But NASCAR is also one of those sports that I have such a love for it from the 90s that I really want to try to get into it again, but I don't know who my favorite driver would be. Like right now, it'd probably just be Chase Elliott, just based on the Elliott name because of my grandma. But man, I really want one to see. Not only did my dad like Mark Martin, but anytime I see an interview with him or they would talk about him or just his paint schemes on his cars and stuff, they just connected with me
I
and
think
I connected with him. So
I think that's the number one thing that's different from NASCAR is you got to actually like the scheme and you got to like the driver.
yeah, it's a full package deal there.
You can't just go one or the other.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty wild. But who were your favorite '90s NASCAR drivers?
Yeah. Yeah, let us know. Just I got to do appreciation posts for NASCAR drivers.
I think so. Yeah.
I gotta
Mark, I'm going to toss up Mark Martin there for that. I say Mark Martin or Rusty Wallace. Let's do both of those.
the Jamal McGlure one. One like exactly what actually a little bit more than what I thought I was gonna get.
He got one like,
Yeah.
which in fairness is the number of times he was an all-star.
So there you go.
Yeah, so
Match
that makes
everything
sense.
up.
I can't believe he only got one like. It's like people didn't know about him. That's a really fun draft to go back to, by the way, the NBA. Like, he's one of the bigger names
That's sad.
in that
That's
draft.
sad.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for listening to us. We appreciate all you awesome peeps. It means a lot to Andrew and I. Make sure if you like this, do you like other nostalgia related topics, not just sports? Make sure you check out the Nostalgia Funhouse as well.
Yes, and yeah, check us out. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And I think, Johnny, it's time to let the race begin.
Yeah, gentlemen, start your engines.